If you're bringing someone to the parks who requires a wheelchair to get around from place to place, follow these quick tips in order to decrease the stress and strain on you and make the day a whole lot easier. Dr. Nicholas Mercer, the theme park therapist with You Improve PT. I recently brought my friend to Magic Kingdom. He requires a wheelchair to go around the parks and see all the attractions and do all of the rides. So he was gracious enough to help me film some clips for the theme park therapist so I can show you what you should be doing and what you should not be doing when you have to wheel someone in a wheelchair throughout your whole day at the parks. We were there for about 10 hours and we made it through, no problems. I'm feeling great today, no stress, no strain on any parts of my body, especially my shoulders and my feet. So I'm going to show you a few quick tips in order to make your day a whole lot easier by decreasing any stress or strain that may come from pushing someone in a wheelchair through the ups and downs, the hills, and around corners through crowds of people. So without further ado, the first one would be make sure you're maintaining proper posture when you're walking on level ground, right? So we're going to start on level ground, and the main way that you should do this is staying as upright as you can and just walking how you normally would. Shoulders relaxed by your side, hands gripping, obviously, the handles of the wheelchair. And make sure you're not hunching over, because when we hunch over, it puts a lot of stress on the shoulder joints and you can actually start to feel all of this get really sore by the end of the day. Next, when you are bringing someone down a hill, number one, always make sure that you have a good grip on those wheelchair handles. But also, a lot of times, the slopes are not necessarily ADA compliant. So typically, we want to see 1 inch of decline for every 12 inch of length on a ramp. That can't always happen at the theme parks. So what you're going to want to do in order to make sure that you're going down a hill safe is actually turn the wheelchair around. Might be helpful to have someone spotting you so you can have eyes in the back of your head, but if not, you just take an occasional look behind you. And I actually want you to back down the hill. This will give you a better hold and control of the wheelchair so that we're not trying to pull back on that wheelchair and trying to stop it as we're going down and potentially losing control of that wheelchair. We want to maintain control, so turning around, getting behind and under kind of the wheelchair, pushing the hips back just a little bit and slowly walking backwards down the hill is probably going to be a little more safe. Not only that, it will decrease some of the stress and strain on your lower back that could come from trying to pull back that wheelchair in the opposite direction as you go down the hill. So keep that in mind. Try to turn around on the steeper hills and walk backwards down. So going uphill, pretty straightforward. You just want to push them uphill. However, we want to make sure that we're doing it with proper form. So what you want to think about is first pushing your hips back and then keeping your chest up nice and tall. And we really want to push through the legs in order to push them up the hill. We don't really want to be trying to force it with our arms. Our arms should really be locked in and stable. And we're pushing from our legs, hinging those hips back and putting all the stress on the hips and the legs instead of the lower back. This will not only make that move a little stronger, as going uphill does require a lot more force, but it will make it more comfortable on your back and your shoulders and just keep everything in line and neutral in order to prevent all of that pain that you could potentially get from pushing a wheelchair with bad form. One more potential thing you want to keep in mind: if the guest in the wheelchair does have a motor that you can detach, you can do that, but I have a couple suggestions. If you're planning on letting them use the motor throughout the day, I would make sure that, number one, you're at a theme park that either normally has a low volume of people or it's a low volume day. So a day that not a lot of people are going to be at the parks, just because there's going to have to be a lot of maneuvering around people. And that's going to be a little difficult if you have the motor controlling everything. You have a little more mobility and you can make sharper angles when it's someone pushing the wheelchair versus using the motor. If you're kind of unsure if you want to use the motor or not, I would suggest you practice before going to the parks, because normally wheelchair motors are very heavy. So we don't want to be having to take it off, carry it around, put it back on when we need to. You want to kind of make that decision before or after And obviously ask the guest what they prefer, because that's going to be what's most important. Whatever they're most comfortable with is going to be what you want to do. But these are just some things to take into consideration. The best part about having a detachable motor is you could take it off, leave it in the car, and do manual throughout the day. And if for some reason we need that motor, go back to the car, grab the motor, bring it back, and put it on the wheelchair. What we did, because we had me, a physical therapist, and my fiance, Alexia, who is a nurse with tons and tons of experience, we preferred to actually leave the motor at home. And the reason for that is we knew there was going to be a lot of people, and we wanted to have a lot more control over the wheelchair. If the motor for his wheelchair stayed on, we wouldn't be able to stand upright as we pushed him, because our feet would be hitting the motor all day. So we took the motor off, and that was just our preference and Jonathan, our guest's preference. So make sure you follow those tips as far as posture is concerned, how to go up and down hills, and whether or not you want to take a motor. There are definitely pros and cons. Ultimately, everything is going to be mostly dependent on what the guest in the wheelchair is most comfortable with. However, that should be a back and forth between you and the guest in the wheelchair to make sure that everyone's comfortable and that we're decreasing any stress or strain on muscles, joints, and any other tissues that is unnecessary and may cause some pain. So please keep that in mind when you're preparing to go on your theme park visit with a guest who is in a wheelchair. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. And subscribe to the Theme Park Therapist for more videos like this on how to alleviate pain and manage pain and even prevent pain while you're inside the parks, because pain is not magical.